Hi, everybody. It says we're live, and welcome back to another episode of the Herp Hour. And as you all know, we are a group of cold bodied fish keepers who also love and keep reptiles. So we kind of focus on our fish on our channels, and this is the way we banded together so we can kind of have our reptile time as well. You might see our reptiles. In my mind, definitely, you see more reptiles than fish now, but this is kind of our way to get together. And we have a Facebook page called Reptales that has all of our videos and announcements and posts on that. So if you want to follow that and keep up with what's going on, we take turns hosting, and obviously I am tonight. So um, we try to have guests, and when we don't, we have a great panel as well as chat that we have great discussions. And tonight we do have a guest, and I am so excited I can hardly contain myself. It's Sarah from Sarah's Snake Shop, and she has other reptiles, but her main focus right now is corn snakes and keeping corn snakes and breeding those. And she's an author. She's just so awesome. And I had just met her yesterday when we did a practice stream and talked to her for a minute just now, and she's backstage. So but before I bring her out, I want to thank everybody in the chat for coming in. I'm not going to go name by name because I tend to talk too much, as you see. But definitely thank you to members and thank you to moderators. Special shout out to Huawei, who is Why Are We Always Yelling? And you see he's already got her links up there. And they are also in the description. So take advantage of those and check her out. But anyway, I could ramble on and on, but thanks everybody, and let's bring Sarah up. Gotta find her, those buttons, you know.
Dragon Lair says Sarah is so smart.
Hello. She is so smart, but she doesn't make you feel stupid, though. That's another thing I really like about her. She presents her material. Oh, hey,
I
Sarah,
definitely try. Hi.
Beautiful snake.
Cleo decided it was time to move around. So
Yeah.
we're on the move right now.
She had been sitting there for a long time, and I guess she woke up.
She's like, all right, it's been 20 minutes. It's time to move. Come on,
gorgeous,
girl.
Gorgeous.
There we go. There she is.
So pretty.
Yeah, hi, Cleo.
Stunning.
So Cleo is just a normal corn snake. She's an adult. She's fully grown. I don't expect her to get any bigger. So just so you can get an idea, these are natural colors. If you, oh, thank you, Dragon Lair. I appreciate that. These are just natural colors in the wild. So if anybody like just goes out and catches one, they're gorgeous, obviously, just as normals. Like you can find them in just about any color. Like you can find them for sale just about any color. But a lot of people they think the normals are pretty enough. And
she's beautiful.
I kind of like them too.
How big is she?
She is about 4 feet. Sorry, girl. She's about 4 feet long, 4.5 feet, somewhere in between there. I want to say probably 4 feet and 3-ish inches. She is missing, wrong side. She's missing the very tip of her tail. I don't know if you can see that right here, but she had lost it as a baby. She was actually caught in the wild as a baby. And she lives fine without it. So, but that does we're not 100% sure of the complete total length because she is missing the tip of her tail. But, give or take, full grown is going to be a little over 4 feet.
Nice. Well, do you mind telling us a little bit about you, Sarah? Like what you'd want us to know, maybe how you got into keeping reptiles and.
Sure. So I've had snakes my entire life. My dad was one of those dads that he wanted to take us outside to catch worms and frogs and snakes and all sorts of things. And when I was young, I think my first memory really of snakes, I was about 3 years old, maybe even younger, because my brother wasn't born yet. And we had caught a pregnant garter snake and just had her in the house overnight. Like it wasn't even like we had her for a long time, but we woke up the next morning and there was just all these little baby garter snakes in a tank. And so that just has sparked my interest since I was a tiny child. And I've pretty much just been keeping reptiles ever since. I've always had, and I guess not always reptiles, but hold on, come back here. We don't want you to, there you go. Okay. Whether it's been, sometimes I had frogs, sometimes I had lizards, sometimes I had, I had birds for a little while, which are also not reptiles, but they're similar in the like way you have to treat them, like as far as their brain capacity. And I've also had fish. So, but as far as keeping snakes, hold on. There we go. As far as keeping snakes, that's been a lifelong thing for me. I can't hear you for a moment, so just give me a second. There we go. And as far as breeding, I used to work in a pet store here in town, and all of the reptiles were really unhealthy. And my boss got mad at me for telling him that we needed to quarantine some of the snakes that had mites. He said, "It's not your job to take care of animals, it's your job to sell them. So go sell that ball python." And that was when I quit the pet store. And I said, like in my area, there was just such a void of healthy reptiles, especially snakes. And so I thought, well, I like snakes. And a lot of people from the pet store knew me already. And so pretty much all of the pet store's customers ended up coming to me for all of their snake stuff after that. And that was back in 2011. And I've just been doing it ever since. And I love it.
Absolutely cool. That is a beautiful snake. I mean,
Thanks.
it's
There's
just,
a belly.
I love her
Wow.
belly. I love her belly. It reminds me of
Wow,
like
that
a
is beautiful.
chessboard or something.
So
Yeah, so if you like normals, this is what they look like. And
Wow.
they're the cheapest ones on the market. So
Wow.
it's always
That's-
crazy to
She's
me
really
that
pretty.
people don't want normals because they're honestly so gorgeous.
I had been collecting when I started getting corn snakes, I guess a year ago. I wanted different morphs. And so I think I had 6 then, and I keep mine because they're juveniles together. And they haven't followed. We have a couple squabbles. There's one little punk in there that tries to steal mice from the others, but I just break that up. He doesn't attack the snake, just the mouse. But
Right.
I saw a normal when I was getting the ball python I was talking about earlier. And I thought,
Mhm.
what a gorgeous snake, and it's so inexpensive. So I finally got a normal, and they're just so pretty.
Yeah. I think that they're absolutely gorgeous. And of course, I like all of them. There's really not a corn snake I don't like. Even the ones that are kind of controversial, there's the scaleless, and a lot of people are kind of iffy on the scaleless, but I mean, it's it's all about perspective, in my opinion. And back when the first albino corn snakes were out, everybody thought those were terrible mutants that should all be put down. And a lot of people think that about scaleless now. And of course, if in the wild, sure, they're gonna have problems possibly, but if you care for them properly, they can still make amazing pets, regardless of having scales or not.
With scaleless.
A lot of people just think that it's cruel to take away their like main defense mechanism. But again, if they're in captivity and you take care of them well, it doesn't really change anything. They just still make great pets.
It's kind of like that declawing an outside cat thing. I get that. Yeah, but if they're inside, yeah. I would
Right.
never declaw a cat, don't get me wrong.
Right? Yeah. Same thing. Same here.
Huh. Well, you said that you had Dragon Lair 2 had caught many of them, in the wild. And so do you get to go herping? I know you work, you actually have a job, but
Yeah.
do you actually get to herp, or have you done that before?
I have not gone out of my way to do that, especially not with corn snakes. I don't live anywhere near where corn snakes are wild. She was caught by a friend of mine down in Florida, so that's how I ended up with her. But I have gone semi-herping for garter snakes and decay snakes and other snakes in my area. I am in northern Indiana, so most of what we're going to get here is stuff that can withstand the winter.
Like garter snakes, that kind
Mhm.
of stuff. Yeah. You probably saw Lucky Stone said there that what confuses him is that normals are prettier than morphs, and I have to agree, they really are. But I guess in the wild, like you were saying, they can be any pattern or any. Do they actually morph in the wild? I'm confused about that too.
Yeah, so there are some morphs that were originally caught in the wild, and that's kind of my expertise is morph history. I you kind of mentioned earlier that I was an author, which is kind of true. But my whole thing is the history of morphs. Where did they come from? How did they originate? Some of them originated in captivity. Some of them originated through hybridization. But there are some morphs like anerythristic and charcoal that can be found in the wild, as well as hypomelanistic can be found in the wild, and some other morphs have been found in the wild as well. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but even palmetto was found in the wild though, and that's a bright white snake.
I had read that about the palmettos. They're so expensive. My local Petco had one for 600, and then 25% off. It's still 400 for a corn
Yeah.
snake, you know. But I guess if you breed them, you know, there was one that doesn't look anything like yours, but it was almost solid orange. It was a big corn snake, and
Hmm.
it was down in the road from where I live, and I went over with a stick. And this has been maybe 10 years ago, and it was just laying on the road, but I was afraid it would get ran over. But it was the brightest, orangest snake I've ever seen.
They can get really, really bright colored in the wild. There's a locality called the extreme locality that's really, really bright colored. It's not one that's popular in the hobby for some reason, but they really do get very bright, bright orange yellow.
Now, panel, jump in because I have a million questions and I'm excited. So cut me off. Does anybody have a question? I'll take a breath and shut up. Does anybody have a question?
But you're not worried about that snake like trying to bite you or striking or anything?
No. She has been a little bit jumpy just because she's been held for a while, but you can see she's really calmed down. Even when she is jumpy, corn snakes do not typically jump straight to biting. That is something that some species of snakes will do a little bit more quickly than others, but snakes don't want to bite you. They like their teeth, and they know that if they bite something that's too big or not food, they could lose their teeth, and it could cause problems for them. It causes them pain, and so if they are not being directly threatened, they don't want to bite you. And that's the same way with venomous snakes as well. I know that that's kind of a lot of people are worried about that, especially with venomous snakes, but they don't want to bite you unless they feel like it's absolutely necessary. Baby corn snakes, they're usually a little bit more nervous, but they're also less harmful. And even these guys, I could probably open her mouth and show you her teeth. They're so small, and even if she was to get a really, really hard bite down on me, it's kind of just like being scraped by the hard side of Velcro. So I have no reason to fear being bitten, even if she does decide to bite me.
I got you.
She's not like in an aggressive posture, no,
No,
but
she is
she,
completely relaxed. She's got her head resting on my finger right now.
I love it when they do that. She's so cute. She
Hey.
got, I think you saw that she focused on something, maybe the shiny thing or something. On she was coming over toward you a little bit there, and you noticed it and turned her. So
Yeah. Yeah, I can kind of tell when they get distracted, and she's just doing fine now. She's
awesome.
just happy to be here.
So you said that she's one of your breeding snakes.
Yes, she's actually never bred for me yet, but she was a proven breeder when I got her, and you can see kind of her overall size. Um, she's a really like healthy breeding size. She is bigger than they need to be to breed, but she's just overall and like I'm actually breeding her. She's my testing female. So if I ever get any snakes that are a mystery morph, because morphs can be a mystery sometimes, the best thing to do is to test them to a normal. So that's kind of her job in my in my collection. But she's not going to breed every single year. She's only going to be breeding when I need something tested, essentially.
Is she the snake that fellow had and she came back to you just recently? Is that the one? Do you know what I'm talking about? It was you did an unboxing maybe a week ago or
Yes. No, no, she is not the one. I almost got her out, but that girl is in the middle of shed right now. She's very, very blue, so I didn't want to bother her. But yeah, that girl, her name is Bjorn. That was the name that was written on her box when I got her, and so that's what I named her. I name all of my snakes. I know a lot of people don't do that, but I like to do it. And Bjorn looks very similar to her, only if you can kind of see. Oh, I can't get where my camera is. Okay, so you see this sort of tan background color on her. Bjorn doesn't really have any of that. It's almost colorless where this tan background is. And Bjorn also has much thicker dark borders than this girl. This girl has some, you can see the black, but Bjorn's are much thicker because she is from Okati locality. And that's just kind of the look of the Carolina corns a lot of the time. This girl's from Florida, so she's not going to have usually quite as like bright of colors as the Okeetees do. Hi.
I have a couple of those. Okitis is the way I've been saying it.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure which is correct. We all kind of have what we've picked up, and we all know what we're talking about. So
What you said sounded correct. I have to put that southern drawl in there.
Where are
Okatee.
corn snakes normally, like, where's their habitat? Like, I'm in Pennsylvania.
Okay,
Is it
so
in Pennsylvania?
it's unlikely. If so, they're going to just barely skirt on the south end, probably. North Carolina is about as far north as they go. There are some up as far as Kentucky, but that's really rare. Once again, they're kind of just on the south end of Kentucky. But they're mostly going to be found like around like as far west as like Mississippi, and then obviously all the way over to the coast. And so you can kind of get an idea of that kind of circle all the way down to into the Florida Keys. In fact, there's a corn snake morph called the Florida Keys corn snake or the Upper Keys corn snake, and they have a little bit of a different look to the average. A lot of people thought they were a different species at first, but they're still taxonomically considered corn snakes now. So if you can kind of get an idea of, you know, Mississippi and then sort of up around toward like where Kentucky is and then back down over to the coast. That's kind of, and then all the way south from that, if that makes
So,
sense. I'm
so
not
what
sure
you're
if I'm
saying
being
is I'm not going to find one in Wyoming either.
probably not. Probably not.
So they are a temperate zone snake. Then they don't like it really hot or dry or cold. So,
Right. Yeah, they kind of just like everything to be chill,
right.
just normal.
Cool.
What other snakes do you have?
I have a ton of other corn snakes, and as far as other species, right now I only have one other species of snake, and that is a singular king snake, and his name is Dexter. Dexter the Desert King, and he's my garbage disposal. For anyone who has ever bred anything, you kind of know what that means. Um, Sometimes things happen, and you know, especially when you're breeding things and things are hatching, sometimes things aren't viable, and so it's nice to have a king snake on hand for that. But right now, those are the only two species I have. I have had many other species in the past, and corn snakes are kind of just what I landed on.
That's what I was just about to ask you. How
I'm a
have you
mind
had
reader.
have you had ball pythons?
I have briefly. I have babysitted ball pythons, if that makes. I've snake sitted ball pythons. I have snake sitted for a lot of people, a lot of different species. I am not a huge fan of most pythons because I don't like the heat pits in their face. I don't know what it is, but it's just not. I don't like the way it looks. It's something about the heat pits. I don't know. Like I've had
What is a
Australian
heat pit?
pythons. I'm sorry.
What is a heat pit?
So if you see about the corn snakes don't have them, colubrids don't really have them. But if you look along the top of the mouth of a python, especially you can see it really well on the bigger pythons, they have these little holes basically that go along the top of their lip. And that's where they sense heat. They're called heat pits. And I just don't like the way it looks. It's nothing like particular about the way the snakes act or anything like that. I just don't like that aesthetic. So that's part of the reason why I don't have them. Plus, when I got into snakes, ball pythons were like the most expensive thing you could possibly buy. And, you know, like even a normal was going for like $300 in some places when I got into snakes. So, or like when I say into snakes, when I started breeding snakes. And kind of experimenting with the different species that I liked. So, and I had briefly a blood python, same thing. I don't really like them that much. However, I have had some spotted pythons, and I love spotted pythons. They have heat pits, but they're very, very small. And I kind of like the more narrow snouts on the snakes. Like as far as what I like to see visually on a snake, I like the more narrow snouts, which is another reason I'm not into most pythons because they have very broad snouts, and it's just a personal preference, I guess.
Now, those heat pits allow them to see, so to speak, in the dark. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
basically. I mean, they just sense the heat around them with it. It is kind of like another sense of sight.
yeah. It's not like we see like the night vision binoculars
Right.
and stuff. It's not that good. Okay. Let's see. Oh, that's a good joke. Lucky Stone. He says he has hognose snakes and they keep dying on him. That is funny.
They just die over and over and over again.
Over.
I did have a pair of those for a while, but once again, they just weren't my thing. I just didn't love them. I don't know, and I've had other milk snakes and other types of king snakes. I loved having scarlet kings. I had scarlet kings for a little while, but I had so many species at the time. I just couldn't keep them all. I had to focus a little bit more. And so the scarlet kings I didn't end up keeping, but I've had gopher snakes as well. Loved gopher snakes. I've Chinese beauty rat snakes as well. I think that if I was ever going to get into another species of snake again, it would be the Chinese beauties, because there's just something so elegant about them that I absolutely love. But they definitely need a more advanced enclosure than what I currently can handle. They're semi-arboreal, so they spend about half their time up in the trees, and so they can't be in a more like sort of flat enclosure like the corn snakes can. They got to have more of the vertical stuff. So when I have the space, I will get back into Chinese beauties probably.
Man, I wish I'd known you when you had the scarlet king snakes.
That was about 10 years ago. So it's been a minute.
Yeah. There's so many that it's easy to get away with you. That's I was telling you yesterday. I'm trying to refocus and focus more on just having a few, not oddball, but a few specimen snakes that primarily focus on corn snakes and ball
Hmm.
pythons. I keep my ball pythons and corn snakes different, but the longer I've kept them, which is just a few years, but I noticed the similarities in them. Like ball pythons don't always like to be in a hide in the dark.
Hmm.
My ball pythons, they do like to do that during the day, but they like to climb. So if I
Hmm.
provide stuff for them to climb on, they climb all over it. So they are somewhat arboreal. But the corn snakes, man, they love. I have branches and
Oh yeah.
they're all over the place.
Oh yeah, they love it. And they're not considered semi-arboreal, but they will go up in trees. A lot of snakes will eat like baby birds is a big part of their diet in the wild. Um, I keep seeing someone, Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. Why are you always yelling? Hi.
Oh,
There's
it's
an
a
H on
different.
the end of my name. I don't know if they're talking to me or not, but there is an H
No,
on the end of my name.
it's a different Sarah. It's one of the
Okay.
artists actually we were talking about.
Okay. I was like, I don't know which one you're talking to.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I hope that answered your question. Like I said, I
Yeah.
can start talking and just talk forever. So you got
Oh,
to
well,
stop me.
I think we're loving it. And speaking of stop me, does anybody have a question or a comment?
What kind of setups do you have them? Do you have them in those pull-out drawers, or do you have them in like enclosures?
They are I it's similar to the pull-out drawers, but they're stacked instead of in drawer form. Drawers to me are just so much more difficult to clean long term, and they're a lot more difficult to replace. And I like to replace my enclosures every once in a while just because, especially with plastic, it retains oh, hi Sarah. Yes, nice to meet you, Sarah. So plastic does tend to retain bacteria no matter how much you clean it. So I like to replace my enclosures because they are made of plastic, at least once every couple of years, sometimes once a year, depending on some snakes just are messier than others. Like they just are. So for the messier snakes, they get a replacement every single year. And then for the ones that aren't so messy, maybe every other year. But that's the main reason I don't do a drawer type of setup is just the drawer like thing itself is so difficult to keep clean and keep bacteria free, and so it's just a more peace of mind thing for me to stack them instead of drawer them.
Now, does that snake that you have go swimming or go underwater?
No, not usually. And I mean, none of the corn snakes really care too much for water. In fact, if your corn snake is constantly sitting in water, you probably actually have a problem. You might either have mites or it's too dry, or something along those lines, where the snake doesn't feel like it has another adequate hide, or maybe it's too hot. Most of the time, corn snakes are not going to be seen in the water. They don't really eat fish, so they'll come to the water to drink. But if they're just constantly sitting in the water bowl, there's probably something wrong, actually.
The new one that I mentioned that I got, the normal, I saw it sitting in the water bowl. I did not quarantine it. I guess I just gave that away. But I did look. I did look it very, very, very well, and wiped it with some mite treatment, just very diluted,
Mhm.
of course, and didn't get any off on me. So of course eggs could hatch, but so far, knock on wood. But it did
Yeah.
that, and I realized that I probably had my habitat a little drier than it had been in one of the cups. They have had lots of the cups
Mhm.
sitting, and so many to choose from, but it had condensation on the top of the cup. So since then, he's done fine. So
That's good. Good. Yeah. Normally, I would say most frequently it's going to be either a heat problem or it's too dry for them, especially if they're getting ready to shed. But and sometimes they just like to sit in the water, but that's really, really uncommon. I did have one snake that I think for her it was that she didn't have another adequate hide, because most of my other snakes, like, I just kind of give them all the same hides and the same bedding and the same everything, but they each do have their own personalities and their own preferences. And so this one particular snake would always go into her water bowl. I was always afraid she had mites, but there was no sign of that. And so I decided to increase the size of her hides and the amount of her hides, and she's been perfectly happy since then. Does not sit in the water bowl anymore. So it could just be something as simple as there wasn't enough, like, safe spaces for them.
Hmm.
right, bull and pine snakes like to paint with their food.
Oh, they do. Oh, they do. I have had gopher snakes are the same way. I've had gopher snakes and they're the same way.
Wow. And I'm confused on another thing as far as I have lots of confusion. The
That's fine.
people say that corn snakes are red rat snakes. I mean,
Mhm.
is that true? I mean, so
Yeah.
why call them corn snakes?
I think it's because it's more it's easier to it's not that it's easier to remember. It's just I would say it's a selling point. It's a selling term. If we're wanting to get real, people are going to remember corn snake a lot easier than they're going to remember red rat snake. Um, and there's other types of rat snakes, like there's obviously the yellow rat snake, there's the Great Plains rat snake. But people don't like the term rat snake really when they're looking for their first pet. Corn snake just sounds a lot nicer. And of course, they say that there's a couple different reasons for calling them a corn snake. For one, you saw her belly, kind of looks like Indian corn,
Yep.
but they also would live in like greenhouses full of corn, and they would eat rodents that would go into the greenhouses. So they're pretty much a farmer's best friend. Um, so there's a number of different reasons, but I would say as someone who has been on the selling side of the hobby for quite a while, it is a lot easier to sell a corn snake than a red or rat snake,
Okay.
just as a name term.
Okay.
And where
I
do you
didn't.
sell? I'm sorry, Bob. Where do you
No,
sell?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Is that like a expo or online or one of these?
Mostly online. Yeah. I have my website, sarahsnakeshop.com, and I have most of the stuff for sale in there, but there's also third-party places like morphmarket.com, and it's really easy to sell in there and to find pretty much anything that you will want as far as reptiles in general go, on Morph Market. And I will advertise some on my Facebook, but Facebook doesn't really like it when you sell animals. So I try to keep it to a minimum advertising on there. I will give updates on my Facebook for like which snakes have been breeding and which snakes, new ones or whatever. And I used to try to kind of sell on Facebook, but again, Facebook doesn't like it when you sell animals. So for now, that's not an option. But mostly online. I rarely go to expos just because going to expos means stressing out all of my animals, packing them all up into cups. They don't get food or sorry, that's my phone. They don't get food or water for the entire time that they're in those cups. They are being gawked at, picked up, touched. There's definitely always the possibility of any kind of mites or any other parasites or any other illnesses from other animals in the expo being spread. So it's just not worth it to me anymore to go to expos. I think it's great when you're first starting out to get your name out there, if you're kind of new to breeding and selling. But and a lot of people have a lot of really great luck with expos. A lot of people, that's how they sell most of their snakes. But I just personally couldn't justify it for myself.
I just realized my lack of knowledge. We see that a lot with fish and anything, but dragon layers seeing both both corn and black rat snakes are both. And one of my volunteers I volunteer with lives in a different county, but she said that I was saying something about my corn snakes, and she said we have the black corn snakes, and I said, well, there aren't any black ones, but I guess technically there are because
There are.
they're both rat snakes. So I'll have to apologize to Abby and.
Well, there are black rat snakes, but then there are black corn snakes. And in fact, I do have a black motley corn snake here with me. I can go ahead and get him out, swap them so that you can
Awesome.
see why they're not called blacks anymore. People call them anery, Anery. And that is short for anerythristic, which means they are lacking the red pigment. So I'll go ahead and grab him. Give me just 1 second.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. I need to watch that. You know how people like to give advice and they don't know what they're saying.
Yep.
All right, this is Casanova. He is a little less.
Oh.
Now, he's not completely black. He's got some other things going on, and I'm not even 100% sure what it all is. But you can see he doesn't have any of the reds. He's got some of the yellow, and he also doesn't have a belly pattern. He's what we call a motley. They don't have belly patterns, and they have spots. You can see his light-colored spots that go down his body. That is the motley pattern. And if he was not a motley, he'd probably be a little bit darker colored. But black is what they call anerythristic, which it takes away all the reds and it just leaves the blacks and the yellows. So you can see some of his yellow, and he's also got, like I said, he's unique. He's got other things going on, but we know for sure that he at least has the anery and the motley. And I'll show you his face. Come here, bud. The public wants to see you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, how
I don't know if
cute.
there he goes.
There he is.
Those big black eyes.
Wow, gorgeous.
He's named Casanova because he will breed to anything that moves. So if anybody's wondering, that's why. He's if I have a female that won't let any other male breed to her, I put him in there and she's all over it. So
Huh.
Casanova.
Wow.
He's a little more mobile than the other girl.
So what
And
have you bred? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say I have 2 other morphs over here if we get to that point.
So what have you bred him with, and what are you trying to get? Or are you just?
Well, so the first time, it's kind of funny. So I purchased him as a female along with another female. And when I got them, they were breeding in the bag. And I, of course, knew that I did not have 2 females. And so, yeah. And so I contacted the people that I got them from, and I actually bought them as a completely different morph than what they ended up being. I bought them as ghost blood red motleys. I can get into details as what all that means if you don't know, but they are not any of those things, except for the motley. The motley is there. But it turns out they're not any of those other things. And they did make it right by sending me another female, and I just had to pay for shipping, really, and I kept this male for free. And so I ended up I went ahead and bred him to the second female that I got just to kind of see what would happen because they all looked somewhat similar. And it turns out they carried the amelanistic gene, so I got some snows, and I also got some stripes out of them as well. So now his role is to make me stripes, vanishing stripes specifically, which is where the stripe is pretty obvious at the head, but once you get down to the tail, you can't see the stripe anymore. So since he's produced those in the past, kind of by accident, that's what he does here now.
Wow.
I
Because
would
I
be
kind of
careful.
liked his
It looks
babies.
like he's really interested in the headphones. He might think it's a female snake.
I don't know. What do you want, bud? You want to go up there? There you go. He's very antsy. He's not a calm snake. That's why I started with Cleo, because Cleo is a very calm, doesn't really want to move, just sort of chill snake. Casanova, he might actually smell her because she's ovulating. And so he probably is like, where the girl at? Where that girl at?
It's a good thing your ears are covered, you know it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, whatever. He can sit there for a minute.
He reminds me a little bit of.
Where is he?
I'm
This
sorry,
side.
I can't remember. I asked you in a post what a gray snake was, but what the morph was, and you said you weren't sure. That's not him, is it?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'll have to go back and
Maybe if I said that there was a gray snake that I had and I didn't know what it was probably him or the other female that I have that came with him, because I don't know what either of them are.
Okay.
So it was either him or the female that he came with. So yeah, he is at the very least an Annery Motley. We have proven that through breeding, but anything else, I'm not 100% sure. I think he might be dilute, but I'm not. I don't know. I have some dilutes that I purchased specifically for test breeding this line.
Oh, cool. How many snakes do you have right now?
That's always a fun question because I
Right.
never really know. It's like, how many fish do you have?
Right.
There's probably a certain number somewhere in my house. I usually, let me see. I actually have an Excel file that shows how many rodents that I thaw out every week, and so that actually has a sum of how many I have. Let's see, rodents to thaw. 76, including babies that I need to sell from last year.
Wow.
Don't tell my husband, who's actually probably in the chat.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that he didn't participate in your hobby so much. So.
No, not so much. He's kind of like that. Okay, Sarah, whatever makes you happy, just as long as they don't smell up the house. Or get loose. That's it. Like, if they stay in their room and it doesn't stink, I'm happy, and that's fine with me because I like my hobbies to be my me time anyway. So he has his me time and I have my me time.
Yeah, that's fair, I think. Yeah. Well, what else you got? Well, he's not ready to leave, is he?
He's still looking for that girl. He's like, where's she at? Where? But I can double fist him here. This is another boy. I wouldn't dare get another female out while this guy's out. But this is one I wanted to kind of show everybody. This is Nectarine. Let's see if I can get my camera to focus on Nectarine. Maybe. He's kind of bright. Okay, you can see his colors there. He is a snow. He's actually a halo snow. And halo is a mutation that I have been working with since the beginning of me breeding. And I don't know if you can tell. Let me see if I can get it to focus again. Do you see that he's got that pink spot right there?
Yeah.
Yes.
And all around it is like a green-yellow color.
Yeah.
That green-yellow color is what I have specifically bred him to have. And he is like the best looking halo I've ever produced. And he can breed now. He's big enough to breed. So, and even he was able to breed last year. So if you kind of imagine, maybe take 4 to 6 inches off of his length, he was still able to breed at that size last year. And males, of course, can breed younger than females because they don't have to carry eggs. They don't have near the taxing on their body to breed. But you can get a corn snake in just about any color, and he's kind of a testament to that. I know a lot of people don't really like the red eyes. You can see he's got those red pupils. It kind of freaks some people out, but there are white options if you want a white corn snake with darker eyes. There are options out there for that. Yeah, he smells the girl too. I can tell by the way he's sniffing me.
Look at that. Wow.
He's like, I can tell someone's been here.
Did you put the other? No, I see him now.
No,
So
he's
great.
just, or he's somewhere. Yeah. Wait, I don't mind keeping 2 males out or 2 females out, but I'm probably going to put them both away to get the last female out. I have one other female over there if you guys want to see her.
Now, do you have babies like him for sale, or?
Well, they sell out very quickly, but yes, I will. He has bred to a couple females already this year, and his mom has already bred, his sister has bred, and his uncle has also bred to a couple of females. So I have a lot of snakes in my Halo project from this coming year. And in fact, Casanova's babies are sometimes also Halo. So I have quite a lot going on with the Halo project. And it's kind of my pride and joy, I would say. I spent 12 years proving it to be a mutation. And so now that it's actually accepted by the hobby, I feel accomplished.
I don't blame you. Well, I'm going to bug you one more question about those
Sure.
guys. Do you do pre-order on them, or do you have time to fool with all that?
I don't like to do pre-ordering just because I never know. It's kind of like don't count your chickens before they hatch kind of thing. Don't count your snakes before they hatch. I do have a contact list, which is pretty much just shoot me an email, sarahsnakeshop@gmail.com. And I put people on a contact for Halo corn snake list for the next year. And I should have plenty to meet the demands this coming year. Last year, I really didn't. Last year, they sold out so quickly. It was insane. But I think this year, since I see Danella in the chat. Hi, Danelle. Danelle's in my chat a lot. He was in my chat earlier. Sorry, I'm not like seeing all of the chat, but I'm kind of glancing up once in a while. But yeah, I should have plenty to meet the demand this year, hopefully, for those things.
Yeah, that's not too far from the truth, Dragon Lair, because I'm really coming back to corn snakes recently. So, okay. When you say this year, sorry, Chad. When
No
you
worries.
say this year, are you talking about 6 months from now, or in a month, or?
About 6 months, I would say, is
Okay.
probably closer to 4 months. So almost all of my females are done breeding. And then it usually takes them a month to 2 months to lay eggs after breeding. And then it takes about 2 months for hatching. And then I do like to keep my babies for about at least a month before I put them up for sale. And with halos specifically, it takes, oh, hold on. Casanova's, he's under my microphone. Come here, buddy. Okay. With halos, it takes like almost 3 to 6 months sometimes to actually see the yellow come in on them. So it could even be up to like 8 or 9 months before I actually have known halo babies available. Except, so Nectarine's mom is a green blotched. I don't have her out, but that yellow extends completely throughout her saddles instead of having the pink in the center. And when a green blotch breeds to anything else, all of those babies are guaranteed to be halo. So since I bred her to, I believe either another Halo Snow or a regular Snow, one of the two, her babies are guaranteed to be either Halo or green blotched, no matter what. So hers will be available sooner than any ones that I'm a little unsure of until their colors come in.
Is the halo a dominant gene, or is it recessive?
It's. Go ahead.
I have a snow. That's why I'm curious. I want to get the right 6.
It is an incomplete dominant gene, so it will pass on in the first generation. So if you get a halo snow and you breed it to a snow, half of the babies will be halos and half will not be, statistically. If you get a green blotched and you breed it to a snow, 100% of those babies will be halos.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Let me put these two away. I keep going to the wrong side because I'm looking at myself like it's a mirror. And let me get out the last little girl because she's going to be a little bit more chill than these two. Just 1 second.
I haven't bred any snakes, but I was thinking, well, how will they know? I don't think they have any trouble figuring it out, huh?
No, they typically do not have trouble figuring it out.
Just that little bit of handling that scent. Wow.
Yeah, and the boys, even like boys that are new to it, usually catch on pretty quick. Okay, so this is Chartreuse. She's a gold dust motley, And you can see she is pretty much just all yellow and white. Go this way. And she's also got that motley spotted pattern with no belly checkers. She's 2 years old this year, and she's kind of a chunky monkey. Some snakes will grow longer while some of them grow wider. Sometimes that just happens. She's more of a growing wider type of snake. So she's not quite breeding ready, even though she's getting close to the age of being breeding ready. But I'm just going to not breed her for one more year or so until she's up to length. But yeah, you can get a corn snake in just about any color. So if you want one that's mostly yellow, you can get one that's mostly yellow. If you want one that's pink, you can get one that's pink. If you want one that's purple, you can get one that's purple. I don't have any purple ones, or I would have shown them off. But they're called lavender corn snakes, and you can find them. They're pretty common. So if you are interested in, getting a very chill pet snake, obviously I've had 4 of them out, and they've all been very chill for the most part, except for the boys who are in breeding mode. But they, if you're interested in a beginner pet snake, you can get these in just about any color. I think blue and green are the only ones you're going to have trouble finding. But there is a morph called blue that's kind of more of like a steel kind of silvery color. They call them blue because they kind of have what appears to be a blue tint to them, but they're not like blue. Either way, just pick a color, any color.
And that really is a chartreuse. It really is beautiful.
I named her Chartreuse because her mom's name was Emerald, and her dad's name was, let's see, I remember one of them. Let's see, so chartreuse is a green, like a light green yellow. Oh yeah, her dad was named after a yellow flower. Her dad's name is frangipani. And so I thought, well, what's a color that's kind of between yellow and green? And that's chartreuse. So that's her name. It's like a yellow green, although she doesn't have too much like green on her, but there she
No,
is.
I remember seeing her in a video or some pictures, and she looked greener than she does here.
Yeah, she is more of a yellow than a green. It could just be my camera is also weird, but come here, girl.
Sometimes
Let
the
me see if I
light.
can get her up close a little bit. Can we focus? There we go. There she is. Pretty girl. I just love her to death. I've had I've had her dad's line since my very first breeding year in 2011. And I've had her mom's line since I think 2012 or 13. So her lineage has been with me since I started breeding. And I think it also really shows in their very chill personalities, because I always handle my snakes pretty frequently, so that they're used to people. Especially even like the babies that I'm trying to sell, I want to make sure that they're going to be good pets, so I handle them relatively frequently. But I also, when I hold back snakes for my collection to breed later, I go for personality before I go for just about anything else. As much as I love the morphs and I love, like, obviously how gorgeous she is, I chose her over her sister because she was so much more chill than her sister was. And it's not that her sister was a bad snake. It was just I like to have the very like cool, chill personalities in my collection.
Right. I can see that.
Yeah.
When you were talking about being big enough to breed, I know in ball pythons, I'm learning, I haven't bred any snakes, but I'm learning that it's weight more than size or age. Is it the same with corns, or is there a component of that? Or
It's with corn snakes, it's the rule of threes. So they say 3 years, 3 feet long, 300 grams for females. With boys, it can be the rule of twos, 2 years old, 200 grams, and 2 feet long. And so that's kind of just an easy way to remember it. Some snakes aren't going to like get that long that quickly. So for her, for example, I don't know if she'll hit 3 feet in 3 years, because she's like her mom. Her mom was more of a grow sideways and not really grow in length kind of snake. And that can run in families too. It's similar to people, cats, dogs, anything like that. If you have a line that just doesn't grow long quickly, it just is that way. So even when she's not quite 3 feet long, if she's at 300 grams and she's 3 years old and she's obviously very healthy, I may go ahead and breed her. But that is just the general rule of thumb: is 3 years, 3 feet, 300 grams for the females. Um, and some will get longer in that amount of time, and they'll still be under 300 grams. And I would still recommend to wait until they're at least 300 grams to do that, because they are going to lose a significant amount of their weight when laying eggs. That's just how it is. And so you don't want them to be skin and bones by the time they're done, you know?
Right. That would be a long, skinny snake for sure.
Yeah.
What do you plan to breed her with, or do you know yet?
Since she came from my Halo line, I will probably put her back into a Halo line. I have another male that has many of the, like, pretty much all the same genetics as her. So I like to breed for variety when I breed. She has the possibility of having like a dozen different morphs come out of what she has. So I want to breed her to an equally like impressive male, to get the most variety possible. And so she is a gold dust motley, which is caramel, amel, ultra, and motley. I know that might be a foreign language to a lot of people, but that's what my channel is for. Like, not to, push my channel too much necessarily, but I specialize on my channel educating people in corn snake morphs and corn snake, like everything from the intro all the way down to deep dives of morphs. So if that's what you are wanting to learn about, that's what I do. Um, and I would like to breed her to a snow that carries motley, as well as she also carries the anery mutation. And so if I bred her to a snow, there'd be a chance of a whole bunch of different things: ultramel aneries. And the male I have is also carries the caramel mutation. And so we could get butters, we could get more gold dusts. So there's a lot of different options that could come out of her if I breed her to the right male.
Nice. Beautiful. What
Thanks.
is a typical setup, just for people that would be wondering, um, if I would get a little, and two, do you recommend, is it okay to get one of these corn snakes from, say, a PetSmart or something like that, or should you really get it with a breeder?
You are definitely going to get more. You're going to get more of a guarantee with a breeder that you have a healthy animal. As someone who worked in a pet store, I mentioned that earlier. They don't care a lot of the time. They don't care if the animals have mites or if they have other parasites. They don't care if they house king snakes with corn snakes sometimes, and then the corn snakes just magically go missing. Couldn't be because the king snake got hungry. And not all of them are going to be that irresponsible, but especially as a breeder, of course, I'm going to say, I think it's better to go to breeders. And I personally would never buy a snake from a pet store anymore. It wouldn't matter what morph it was, because I have a trusted community of breeders that I know, who are going to have any morph that I'm going to want anyway. And so I think that if you go to a pet store and you see, say, an albino that's really, really beautiful, but you notice it has mites all over it, you're not going to rescue that snake by buying it. You're just going to perpetuate the problem, and it would be better to get from a breeder. It just would be. The snakes are going to be healthier, and you're going to have more health guarantees, and most breeders are going to be more responsive to any concerns you might have. So I generally, even me, I will never buy a snake at a pet store again, no matter what. Like, you really can't convince me to at this point. And part of that's because I do have the whole network of breeders, but I have often pointed people in the direction of someone who has something that I don't have. So if you contact me and you say, hey, I really want like a lavender. I mentioned I don't have lavenders. I'm going to know someone who has a lavender, and I'm going to know that they have healthy snakes. And so I can at least point you in that direction. And that's part of the reason to go to a breeder as well, is like, even if they don't have what you want, they can help you find what you want from a healthy source. And to answer your other question, as far as setups go, it depends on the age of the snake that you get. If you get a snake that's about this size or bigger, you probably want to get at least a 20-gallon tank. Keep in mind, she's about 2 years old. So you want to at least get a 20-gallon tank. or maybe even bigger. And a bigger snake like this, she's, being 2 years old, she's more than just well established. She's a subadult at this point. And you're going to want, for an adult corn snake, it also depends on the type of enclosure you want to get. I mean, if you want to do a rack system or a stacking system like I have, you're going to want to get between a 26 to 42 quart container for that, which is like the underbed containers. I usually use 26 quart for my males, and then for my bigger females, they get like a 42 quart. Just because, and I personally feed my males a little bit lighter than I do my females, so they just generally don't get as big, and it's not an unhealthy way to go. Just because I want to make sure that all my females are like going to be able to bounce back from breeding and stuff like that. So if you have a male, and even if you don't, even if you're not a breeder, I'm still kind of thinking in breeder mindset right now. But if you're just a casual keeper and you want a decent setup, I would get a 20-gallon tank for anything that's a yearling or older. If it's younger than a yearling, I would go with more of like a critter keeper, like a large critter keeper. And it's spelled with a K. Critter and keeper are both spelled with a K. And you can get a heat mat with thermostat set up to go and underneath that. And a water bowl, and that's going to be a great setup for anyone that's sort of getting a younger snake, that you can just eventually use that as their separate feeding enclosure if you want to feed separately, like outside of the enclosure. Or and eventually you can use that to transition into a larger enclosure if you get a snake that's like a yearling or younger, if that makes sense. I did see a question, Sarah,
Yeah.
on your website you have listed classics from 22HH. Is that a normal like the one you showed? Yes, they are normals like the one I showed. They are not related to her, but they will look a lot like her as an adult. Yeah.
Nice. I know Jenny Lynn has a ball python, her and her husband, and they're fairly new to reptiles, I think. But, so, I think. I don't get the joke, so I'm not going to say it. Oh, I guess I have to. What do you call a snake that sells ceramic flooring? A tile rip.
Oh, funny.
I don't get
That's
it.
funny. Like instead of a reptile, a tile rep, because they sell ceramic tiles.
Okay. You need to make sure George sees that for his dad joke stream at late night.
I might even use that joke in the future myself, to be honest. That's pretty funny.
It is, now that I get it. I can't believe I'm that dense. But anyway. So those are the three that you were going to show us? I didn't want to cut anybody off.
Yep. I do have one other like baby that I wanted to show for anybody who kind of wants to get an idea, like, oh, I'm curious about getting a corn snake, but what size is a baby? Let me get a baby for you so you can get an idea of, because like you're not going to probably get one like this right. Size when you first go get a baby corn snake. So let me grab the baby for you guys to see a size reference.
I'm glad she's doing that because, you can hear me. I'm glad you're doing that because I have baby questions too. I think we're going to need a part 2.
I am always happy to come back for a part 2. So this is
tiny.
This one is actually a few months old. So this is not baby.
Is that like a copper color?
So this is the pattern is called tessera. It's a type of stripe. And you can kind of see that stripe that goes down the back. Yeah. And obviously the belly is going to be a little bit different. There's missing some checkers, but not all. And tesseras are highly variable. Right now, she does have a very, like you said, copper color to her. Yeah, but that copper color will turn red like a normal. This is a normal colored tessera. So the very first snake that I had out, being a normal, she was this color scheme as a baby. And so this one will grow up to have that sort of brighter red with the more yellow, just like more color. When they hatch out, they're almost completely brown. And you almost can't tell. Yeah, and that's another reason.
How old are they before you can really tell like what color they're going to be?
Usually at about a year old, you can tell. At about a year old. Sometimes it'll take maybe closer to 18 months for those colors to really come in. Let's see if I can get up close a little bit better. There we go. Babies are not going to be quite as calm and chill, but so at about a year to a year and a half is usually when you're going to get like an idea of what those colors are really going to look like.
Oh, good, Jenny Lynn. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I do have recommendations on which one if you decide to get any off my website, because some of them do have better personalities than others. So I can point you in the right direction if you're looking for a pet.
What you said about the color change on the Tessera is very accurate, because I have two of them, and I have one that's probably a year and a half now, and it's more red than it is the copper brown. And the one I spoke of earlier that's a little punk that likes to steal everybody else's mouse is the other Tessera. It is such a little varmint. So.
Well, and there is a potential rumor, and I don't want to scare anybody. There's a potential rumor that the Tessera mutation actually is from king snake hybrids, because there is a king snake gene that looks identical. And a lot of people have dealt with those hybrids. And so we see a lot of like king snake type personalities in a lot of Tesseras. Not all of them, but Tesseras are much more likely to bite their love partners and hold on to them. And that's a much more king snake trait than it is a corn snake trait. Corn snakes do it, but it's much more common in king snakes. And we see it much more often in Tesseras than any other morph. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. It could be that he's got a little bit of that king snake going on, maybe. And it's not a 100% sure. Nobody out there is going to be able to confirm for sure if they came from a hybrid breeding. But that is a very, very prevalent rumor in the hobby. So if you ever wonder, like, hey, that Tessera looks a lot like a king snake, there might be a reason for that.
Well, you said that was not a newborn, but it's a juvenile. So how big would they be? How soon would you sell them? And I know we got to wind up here. We've been going just at an hour, it looks like. So if anybody else has got any questions, I'm going to ask one more. I promise, just one more. How big would you let them? How big do they have to be when they're going? I heard some people say they have to have eaten twice, that kind of thing.
I like to feed them 5 times minimum. So if they hatch out and they eat before their first shed, I will usually sell them under a month old, because I already know they're going to be great feeders. If they don't eat that soon, which many of them don't, but if they don't, I like to wait until 5 feedings, which is usually a month to a month and a half old. And at that point, they're going to be like, kind of imagine, they're going to be more like that long instead of that long, but they're still going to be very tiny. So kind of imagine maybe even like half this guy's length sometimes they hatch out at. So there's her length, my bad. So kind of like imagine I'm holding 2 baby snakes right now. That's about the size of baby corn snakes. Very tolerant. Thank you.
Somebody said they look like shoelaces.
Yeah, they do. And I tell you what, if one this size escapes, you may never find him.
Yeah. Gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring you back down and bring the panel up.
Okay.
Awesome.
I have one more question.
Sure.
You will come back for part 2?
Absolutely. I'm always open for talking about snakes, and we can go more in depth if you want, or we can whatever. I'm open for whatever.
That sounds good. I'm not allowed to have a snake, but I want to know everything about them.
Well, I'm here for that.
Maybe we can, anybody that's watching, or you know how to reach any of us guys, if you think of questions that you didn't get to ask or you would like to know, I think there's a whole lot more knowledge there and experience that we haven't even begun to tap yet. So, and I can think of five questions just related to what you're talking about right now, but I know we have to stop at some point. So I'll get those together for next time. And maybe we'll send you some questions ahead of time so that you can be, not that you're not prepared on the spot, but to give you an idea of what you'll be talking about.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I'm open for whatever.
Awesome. That happened. That escaped, and they never found it. Yeah, I've got a black African house snake loose in the house. It's been 6 months now, and I know it's still alive because I haven't found it. But
Well, you never know. Honestly, you never know. Although if you start finding little poops everywhere, then you know it's still alive for sure.
I haven't found that.
Yes, I do have a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Sarah's Snake Shop. It should be linked somewhere up there.
Yeah, Grasshopper's
Somewhere.
been throwing it out. He's
Oh, yeah.
got one just right up above, just a little ways up there.
But yeah, I do everything corn snake related. That's my entire channel is based on corn snakes. I do everything from beginner, like introduction to morph videos, care videos, and even like deep dive into morph and morph history and the genetics on things. So pretty much wherever you are in your corn snake journey, I have a video for you or multiple videos for you. I also go over breeding, eggs, egg laying, egg hatching, raising babies, how to feed picky snakes, pretty much anything. So if you are interested, you can find me, Sarah's Snake Shop, on YouTube.
Yeah, I've been spending way too much time on there lately, but I'm having a good time. So
Well, good. I'm glad.
And learning a lot. So
I'm glad.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for hanging out and for asking questions. And thank you, Huawei, for doing an awesome job with posting the links. You always do. Thank you so much. And thank you, panel. And these guys that are up here are all here because they're awesome channels. And incidentally, all of us four are on the Tennessee Fish Mafia. So we'll be on Sunday night with that panel. So, all right, Sarah, thank you so much. This was
Thank
even
you for
better
having me.
than I could have dreamed. So thank you.
Aw. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And I look forward to the next one.
Very
We do
cool.
too. We do too. All right.
You've almost talked me into getting a corn snake.
Do that. All
Well, I
right.
think you need one.
I do too. I definitely do.